It's the day of a big village meeting to talk about the environment. But in the countryside, work always comes first. Tsering Bazom spends the morning clearing weeds in her vegetable garden before setting out. She says she doesn't have much education. She's never heard of greenhouse gases, global warming, or carbon dioxide. She has noticed one thing in recent years, though. It's getting easier to grow vegetables here in the part of Tibet known as the Four Great Rivers area. And every time she looks up at the snow-capped mountains, she sees evidence of climate change.
You don't like it,
The village meeting is a training session led by Nawang Gurung. He works for the American environmental organization FutureGenerations, which has been doing conservation work in Tibet for 20 years. Tsering Bazom and other respected figures chosen by the villagers themselves are learning to be pendabas. Pendabas, a new Tibetan word, meaning volunteers who serve the village by providing leadership in environmental awareness, beginning with basic hygiene and health care.
Our main objective is, we call it a bottom-up conservation, bottom-up conservation, which means to come those looking up from the community, not by the top down.
Most pendabas are women. Improving their homes and villages is the starting point for conservation of mountains, forests and rivers.
We talk about health issues, we talk about economic issues, we talk about the environment conservation. If you think about that, the most of those activities are concerned with the women, their daily life.
Tibet's high mountain passes are festooned with prayer flags. Tibetans believe the prayers written on them are carried away by the wind to increase the health and harmony of all living beings. Tibetan Buddhists believe in the sanctity of all life. So modern environmental ideas fit in well here. Tibetans are devout, but they are also poor. The desire for a better life is a powerful force for change. Tibet's environment and its unique culture are both vulnerable to the pressures of development. James Hogan is chairman of Canada's David Suzuki Foundation, which has been working with FutureGenerations to help China create a huge conservation area in the Four Great Rivers region.
The main driver in what it is we do and we don't do is how sustainable is this going to be. So you have to go in there and help solve problems like poaching and deforestation. But you can't do it with experts coming from the outside telling the community what to do. Really, it's the community that has to decide what has to be done. And then outside experts can come in and help them and help build capacity and sometimes help with the funding.
The Four Great Rivers Conservation Area covers about 400,000 square kilometers. It's bigger than Newfoundland and Labrador. Tashi Tsering is one of the trained pendabas, local people who live in the conservation area and hope to protect it.
生活上面有改变很大，比如说这个生活用具这个吃饭问题比以前这个卫生来说讲究的多一些，还有那个对自然这个环境保护来说的话，也比以前好一点。
A big part of the volunteer job is educating people.
大家都意识得到，大家都议论到这个现在这些不保护的话，在我们这一辈子这个不保护的话，那下一辈子下一辈子肯定生活也不好过噻。
Controls on logging and on development monitored by local people will help protect the vast virgin forests. But there's not much local people can do about the melting glaciers.
Tibetans lived lives largely untouched by the rest of the world for centuries. Now the roof of the world is feeling the effects of global warming from carbon emissions put out by the rest of us down below. Every year the ice caps get a little smaller and glaciers like this one are receding back up the mountains. And what happens up here can have serious consequences for huge numbers of people beyond the borders of Tibet.
Rivers which provide water for about a third of the people in the world have their sources in Tibet. 4 of them flow through the conservation area: the Yangtze, the Brahmaputra, the Salween and the Mekong. Global warming could create more floods and mudslides and ultimately lead to water shortages. China's paying attention, says the director of Tibet's Science and Technology Department, Dorji Tsering.
我在国际地形工作快5年了，从来没有这个安排过这么大的一些项目，就仅是生态环保上，给你安排将近5000万，应该说这可想而知，这个国家呢是确实不但对本国人民负责，而且对下游人民也在负责。
Protecting trees is crucial because deforestation would make the problems worse, not only here, but in India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand and Burma.
This region is not only the original source of water for a large section of humanity, it's also a biodiversity hotspot. The wide range in altitudes creates climate zones from tropical to polar, which are home to an amazing variety of plants and animals.
After 30 years of study, Professor Liu Wulin knows every nook and cranny of the 4 great rivers area.
这个地方有雪山、森林、草原、湖泊、河流，一直你到了峡谷，下面有很热带的森林这些。
With a rise of 6 vertical kilometers from valley bottoms to mountain tops, the area is home to rare monkeys and to Himalayan bears.
在这个地方，古北界、东眼界2大界的动物种类都存在，就是说，从我们国家的南方的动物和北方的动物，在这个地方，都有存在分布，这个物种。 所以它的物种丰富程度就是在全世界也是很特殊的一个区域。
Professor Liu recalls being stuck in a snow-filled mountain pass for 2 weeks in March 1980.
到1999年，也是同样的这个时候，3月底，我翻这个山口的时候，已经是所有的杜鹃花都开了，而且是春意盎然，那就是没有雪了，就是说，可以说是这个季节呀，相当于这个季节气候已经相当于提前了近1个月。
A region with more yaks than cars and relatively few people bears little responsibility for climate change, but it's extremely sensitive to the consequences. Consequences which are still difficult for scientists to predict with certainty. Patrick Brown, CBC News, Burma, Tibet.